All right, we continue on. This is technically the third video in the series of going over the Bears roster construction. I bit my tongue, so I'm sorry. It feels a little fat to me, but hopefully you guys can endure through this. This one gets a little bit more interesting because of the news that came out yesterday with Jonathan Ford being signed from the Packers practice squad and Royce Freeman being picked up as a free agent. This becomes a little bit more interesting because it kind of falls right in line with what I'm feeling about the Bears. The Bears are sitting at 4-9. They're out of playoff contention. It's over with for this year. This year becomes, if you guys watched Hard Knocks when they were talking about the Browns this last week, the Browns, Myles Garrett was on there saying, this is an audition for next year. The team needs to know whether or not they want to keep you on the team or whether other teams want to see you and pick you up. That's very applicable for where the Bears are right now. 4-9, they're not making the playoffs. They've got to figure out which players they have that are worth keeping and which players they need to move on from and which ones could be potential breakout stars on this roster. So we've essentially gone through this roster. We've gone through what free agents there are, which unrestricted free agents, which earnings restricted free agents, which restricted free agents, which salary cap implications there are. And today we're going to focus on a couple guys I think the Bears need to take a hard look at through the rest of the year to see what we have in them. And there's some obvious ones that pop out. Some guys that have some potential that are coming at the end of their contract. Bill Murray being one of them, but he's injured through the rest of the year. You can't really evaluate him. You're going to pick him up anyways. Ricky Stromberg, same type of thing. You picked him up as a kind of a flyer. He's been injured multiple times. Third-round pick. Already dropped in his second season because they were sick of the injuries, so they did an injury buyout with him over at the Commanders. So he's been picked up by the Bears basically to develop him, see what we can get out of him into next year. That's not this year. But Karan Amagaji was a third-round pick that many had up into the second round if he wasn't injured earlier at the last year of his college. It made me real small up here, but you can see in college, these are the last games at Yale, week 3, 4, 5, and 6, and he was injured. He had that massive quad injury that kept him out in the beginning of this time with the Bears, too. He basically had to sit through all of practice, through spring camp, through the 90-man roster. Into the first 4 weeks, they started him at the year at the injured reserve, so he didn't get to play. Here's his first games with the Bears, week 5, 6, and 8, and then he just played this last week 14, and he got a few reps there, but they're just kind of working him in. He had, out of necessity, had to play more snaps against Washington in week 8 there. And so far, even the reps that you're seeing from him are going to be a little skewed because he's still trying to get back up to speed. You're still trying to get his health. You're still trying to get his conditioning up and get his weight back and his working him out. So this year is kind of a red shirt year is kind of how you want to put it for Karan Amagaji. But, I mean, so much screaming potential out of him. This is his 2022 and 2023 season. His offensive grades off the chart. His run blocking, his pass blocking. Projected down here, NFL Draft Buzz, late second rounder, around 60. The Bears ended up picking him at 75 because of the injury. I loved the pick when we took him. Long arms, big body, 6'5", 323, long arms. So a ton of potential out of him. We need to see what we have out of him. So that's what I want to do in here is just see some guys. So Karan Amagaji, I'm not saying we want to sacrifice starting our starters because our starting offensive line, I know some of you don't agree with this. Our starting offensive line is pretty solid. It really is with Braxton Jones playing really well, Coleman Shelton playing well, Tevin Jenkins when he's healthy playing well, Matt Pryor stepping in really well, and even Darnell Wright being a top 10, I mean over the last couple of weeks, top 5 right tackle in all of football. So I'd love to see some people like Bill Murray. You see this is from the preseason. He was the highest rated of all Bears. I only put the top 2 just so I could put him in there. And you'd love to see Tevin Jenkins do the rest of the year without getting injured, continue to play at a high level, earn at least, if he could sign a hometown discount contract, that'd be awesome. But you look over here in the season so far, Karan Amagaji, not the best. But like I said, conditioning, we got to work him back up. Doug Kramer doesn't belong on the team. Larry Borum, Jake Curhan, Ryan Bates is gone. Coleman Shelton's right on the borderline. He's playing well enough, but are we going to upgrade that position? We'll see. So that's another one that I would like to look at, and I'm going to show you guys right here. We signed Ricky Stromberg, but you're not going to get a look at him this year. He's basically coming back from injuries this year, and you see there the Commanders cut him. The Bears added him to the practice squad. Very highly rated coming out of college, projected 5th rounder. They ended up taking him in the 3rd round because they saw something they really liked in him with the Washington Commanders. In the preseason, this is how he's worked out so far. So nothing spectacular, but a ton of potential there. You see his RAS score of 9.75. And so for this, I'm going to highlight 3 or 4 guys that I think we should steal off of other teams' practice squads. So this just happened yesterday with Jonathan Ford. The Bears signed, well, today technically. Maybe I'll release this late. I'm recording it late. Who knows when I'll release this thing. But just barely, the Bears signed Jonathan Ford from the Packers practice squad. And I actually had him highlighted for this video and ready to go. And if you saw my little video on the 4 players we signed, I was actually pretty psyched because I was like, I actually had him ready for this video and I was ready to go with it. And I was excited. So to sign someone off someone else's practice squad, you're basically committing to make them a member of your 53-man roster. They don't have to play in games, but they've got to be on your 53-man roster for at least the next 3 weeks. You cannot release them. You can't take them from practice squad to practice squad. You can't be playing them in upcoming games, basically trying to steal them to be able to get intel and secrets from them. So you can't be doing that. And then you can't waive them for at least 3 weeks. You've got to have them on your 53-man roster for at least 3 weeks. Then you can waive them, re-sign them to your practice squad if you want to. But most likely you're just trying to have someone fill in for depth if someone's injured, or you're trying to see if you can find a flyer. There's some guys on practice squads that are really, really highly coveted that are prime for picking, and the Bears had it happen at the end of last year. Teams do this at the end of the year. Sometimes they will take a flyer on some of these practice squad guys to see what they've got. As they move into the end of the year, they can sign a future reserve contract and bring them in for the next year as well. So the first one I'm going to highlight here is in the offensive line, and it's going to be at the center position. I'm not saying they should start over Coleman Shelton or over Tevin Jenkins or Braxton Jones or any of that, because you don't want to risk all that cohesion these starting 5 have and getting Caleb Williams injured. You want to build Caleb Williams through the end of the year. But I'm saying if we get way down in a game, you're bringing your reserves in. If you're getting way up in a game, you're bringing those. It's a good time to see these guys, and you can see them in camp as well, in practice during the week. You can see how they develop with the team. One of those guys is a guy that I highlighted at the end of last year, and for this position is Drake Nugent, the center out of Michigan. Now, he's with the San Francisco 49ers on their practice squad. So if we signed him, we would have to bring him to our 53-man roster, but there's guys that are expendable. You've got Larry Borum, you've got Jake Curhan. Larry Moore's gone already, but Jake Curhan, you can get rid of some of these guys and bring them in without, big implications. But 6'2", 300 pounds, decent arm size, good speed, and good shuttle. So he's got good movement. And in college, he was pretty equal on passing and run blocking. He was projected to be an undrafted free agent, but he was one of the most highly coveted free agents after the draft was done. You can see his pass blocking grade so far in the preseason this last year. So this is his preseason grade. He had 99 snaps, 40 run blocking, 59 pass blocking, very high pass blocking grade. No sacks, no hits, 1 hurry. But it's preseason. Very limited sample size. But out of his scouting report coming out, showing some nastiness to his game, Nugent will sustain blocks through the whistle, thriving when he's in the phone booth. Outstanding in the screen game, both because of his instincts to deceive defenders and mobility to get out in front of the front and land blocks. I mean, this is perfect for the Bears, what we're trying to run. Coordinated when moving to the second level as a run blocker, capable of landing blocks on the move. Nugent has a high football IQ, handling protection calls at the line of scrimmage, fundamentally sound and understands blocking angles, using body positions to his advantage, disciplined awareness, and good intelligence, shows good quickness and flexibility on reach blocks, has enough range to get out as a puller. Basically, Doug Kramer's not going to work out. We've tried it for a couple years. He was a late-round pick anyways. We brought Ricky Stromberg in for this reason. Coleman Shelton's on the last year of his deal. Do we sign him for 1 more year? Do we sign him for 2 years to have consistency and cohesion with Caleb? Do we draft one next year? The advantage of some of these guys like Ricky Stromberg and Drake Nugent, they played in good systems, and they've got some NFL experience, at least, studying in film room, learning the NFL culture. Bring some of these guys in and see if they can compete. You can still draft a draft pick later in this next draft, but some of these guys have some high upside that's worth bringing them in to see at least you're going to bring them back for next spring or next fall camp and see if they can compete. I actually love the idea of stealing Drake Nugent from the Niners, bringing him into our team at the last 4 games of the year and just seeing what we have in him. Next up, this next one becomes obsolete because I didn't even have Royce Freeman on my radar. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know who did. He was a free agent and not on anybody else's team, so I wasn't looking at practice squads for him. But there is a practice squad member that screams out. Everyone sees him as one of the most dynamic practice squad players, but the Bears have Ian Wheeler injured. He was already injured before the season. But then you have Roshan Johnson with his concussion. DeAndre Swift injured, not out. I added that designation there. But injured, struggling a little bit. Travis Homer's healthy. We can always bring Darrington Evans up. But one idea that I have that I think a lot of teams are looking at is Frank Gore Jr. And no, he's not the power back. I get that. He's only 5'8", 201 pounds, but he can hit a hole pretty hard. Obviously, son of NFL star Frank Gore. But this preseason, he was one of the highest graded running backs, period. I mean, he had a breakout preseason. He was an undrafted free agent, one of the highest rated undrafted free agents, projected at 259, so right on the border of, Mr. Irrelevant, draft pick irrelevancy. But 4.9 yards per carry per attempt, 1 touchdown, 3.09 yards after contact, no fumbles, high run and high offensive grades across the board. He had a huge preseason. Everybody's watching him. Now, he's on their practice squad. They're deep at running back. But he would be fun to bring in just to see what we have in him, just to see what we could do with him. I realize you're not going to take all the reps from DeAndre Swift, but I think it'd be fun. I mean, this is just a fun concept for me. So on his scouting report, lateral agility and quickness, enabling him to change directions swiftly and dodge defenders effectively, strong contact balance and ability to force missed tackles, showcasing his resilience and drive. He honestly sounds a lot like DeAndre Swift. And if you watch him in the preseason, he looked a lot like him too, so it could be fun to learn from him. Excellent vision and patience, allowing him to identify and exploit run lanes effectively. Skilled at settling and following blocks, demonstrating his tactical understanding of the game. Durability and ability to handle a high volume of carries, evidenced by his physical endurance. Displays a knack for receiving with reliable hands and ability to make plays after the catch. Flash potential as a route runner, capable of creating separation on short routes. Versatility, as demonstrated by his ability to excel in various roles. Adding strategic options for play calling. I just think this would be a fun one. He's very highly regarded. Had a huge preseason, so it'd be fun to bring him in. We need depth at running back. We obviously signed Royce Freeman, so maybe this one's obsolete at this point. Maybe this one's out the window. I'm a day late and $1 short, but I would still like to bring him in, steal him from the practice squad of the Bills, and just see what we could do with him. All right, so I'm skipping over receivers and tight ends just because I don't really think there's a lot to explore there. Maybe play Colin Johnson a little bit more. Maybe play some of the tight ends a little bit more in the practice squad. But I'm going to skip right to the defense now because there's a couple guys we absolutely should be playing and seeing what we have in them for next year, because we kept Dominique Robinson. That's the biggest one to me. We kept him, and it almost didn't make sense why we kept him. And the same with Jacob Martin. He was injured to start the year, and then he's played 7 games. But look at these guys. You got for our pass rush on the season, you've got Dominique Robinson with 16 total pass rushes. We've made him inactive for a majority of games, but his pass rush win rate and his pass rush grade is one of the highest on the team. Problem is, it's a limited sample size, and a lot of that came in garbage time. And Jacob Martin, only 7 games, but still limited snaps, rotating a lot, losing a lot of time behind other players. Someone we compared to kind of a Yannick Ngakoue, who couldn't stop the run, but was really good at getting after the ball. Our second highest pass run win rate. But then look down here at our run defense. Jacob Martin hasn't been absolutely terrible, so he's not sacrificing that much. Our whole defense has been terrible at run defense. But then you look at Dominique Robinson, the highest grade, 77.2, and he's been in on 22 run defense snaps. I don't know. I think they really need to play Dominique Robinson and Jacob Martin a lot to end this year, just to see what we have in them. Just to see what's there, because, you're getting Austin Booker development. He hasn't been playing well. You can see he's got the lowest grades on both sides, but we knew that. We knew he was developmental. He was undersized. He needed some more reps, and he needs to beef up this offseason. We knew all of that stuff. But overall grades, when you've got Dominique Robinson with the highest overall grade, and you've got Jacob Martin with our 4th highest overall grade, and we're not playing them enough, it really makes me question where things are headed. And they really need to explore and at least understand. If you give them more reps and this regresses back to the mean and Dominique Robinson ends up falling way down the board, at least you know what you got in him. He's a big body. He leaned himself out. He looks really ripped and trim, a lot like Gervon Dexter this last year. So right now, it's just not cutting the mustard. All these guys, horrible run defense grades, and our pressure has not been there all year. When you have your best 2 pressure guys being the limited snaps, and it's just a small sample size, it doesn't bode well. All these guys are just, we don't have a good defensive line. So you need to see what you have in them. And then along with that, I had 2 suggestions. So I actually only had one. I had Jonathan Ford. He was my suggestion. And then when the Bears signed him, I got giddy. I mean, he's young still, but he's huge. 6'5", 338. And his tackling grades in college were solid. In the NFL preseason, he struggled. He came on. He was a 7th-round draft pick. If I move this, you see 7th round, 235 to the Packers. And they've had him on the practice squad every year. He hasn't hit the season at all. He's been on the practice squad. His first year really struggled. He's one of those developmental guys, but this is what it means to develop a player. The Packers have been doing that. And he came along this preseason, limited snaps. Again, 72 total snaps, 33 on rushing, or 39 on rushing, 33 on run defense. And his run defense, 0 missed tackles, no pressures, but you're sticking him in there to help stop the run is what you're doing, because the Bears have been absolutely abysmal against the run. So you stick that big body, 6'5", 338, and he knows how to plug a hole. He knows how to get that job done. So I like the idea of Jonathan Ford. All right, and since I had to replace him since it already happened, unexpectedly already happened, another one that I was keeping my eye on was Pheldarius Payne. He's with the Colts right now. He was with Houston as an undrafted free agent during the preseason. They let him go, but his pass rush is really solid. He reminds me of a DeMarcus Walker. His size and everything, his play on the field. So it'd be fun to see him develop under DeMarcus Walker. You can see his grades in his last year in Virginia Tech. Very solid, off-the-chart grades, but in limited snaps. He was only a part-time. He rotated in. So he was a flyer, but there's a lot of potential in him, a lot of upside with Pheldarius Payne. So I'd like to see the Bears maybe take another flyer on him if it's not working out with somebody else, like a Byron Cowart, which it's not. Or, some of the other guys on the defensive line. Bring someone like Pheldarius Payne in. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on him because he's kind of my backup to Jonathan Ford. But I love that the Bears went and did that. I mean, it honestly, when I saw the news, I was like, freaking, I'm already making this. This is real. It's happening. So it was really cool for me. But Pheldarius Payne is another one that I kind of keep my eye on. He's on the Colts practice squad. He's with Houston for the preseason, but the Colts took him to their practice squad, which runs a very similar system to the Bears. So it'd be fun to see if we could bring him over and just, play him in some garbage time. All right, and then one more we're going to hit, and there's a couple guys here. This is your linebackers and nickelbacks. I'm not going to hit safeties and cornerbacks. We've got enough rotation in there. We've got guys all signed through next year, so I think we're solid there. And we really, need to get Josh Blackwell some more reps. He should be returning punts and kickoff returns still too. Terrell Smith needs some more reps. But here, I'd like to see Reddy Stewart get some more reps. If you guys remember him, he's on our own practice squad. Undrafted free agent, huge preseason, some huge hits, big interceptions. I mean, he's a hits principal. He really plays football hard. So I'd like to see Reddy Stewart get some more. The other one I want to see with our linebackers, we've had a huge problem in coverage this year with Jack Sanborn, T.J. Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds. They're just not playing coverage well. And T.J. Edwards is hitting hard, tackling hard, but Tremaine Edmonds just feels out of place a lot. I've been very frustrated with this unit this year. So I'd like to see Noah Sewell get some reps. In the preseason, he hasn't looked good. He looks like a bust of a draft pick so far. I put Noah Sewell here at the bottom, but at the top, you'll see Shaka Heyward. Now, Shaka Heyward is well known throughout the league as one of the best prospects that's sitting on a practice squad. He's with the Browns right now, or with the Bengals right now. Sorry, he's with the Bengals. He was on the highlight of the front screen of this video. Playing extremely well in the preseason. This is his preseason this last year. Defensive grade 84.6, tackling grade off the chart, coverage grade off the chart. At Duke in 2022, before he went was he drafted or undrafted? Undrafted by the Bengals. Before he was an undrafted free agent of the Bengals, played really well in his final year there at Duke, and then they brought him up. He's developing in 2023, and he looked really good in the preseason this last year. Solid in his coverage grades as well. But you look at Noah Sewell in his preseason, and he's not coming along. A lot of people question why we haven't been playing him. Almost the exact same size and weight as Shaka Heyward. But Shaka on tape plays very fluid, plays very hard. Noah Sewell, I like him. He's just not panning out. Couple missed tackles, 100% missed tackle rate. A couple missed tackles, 2 missed tackles, no tackles in the preseason. Just a rough go for Noah Sewell. So he might be a draft pick that's not panning out for the Bears. And if that's the case, I am totally good with taking someone like Shaka Heyward, who is developing and who is becoming a potential star for the Bengals on their practice squad. I want to see the Bears bring him over and see what they can do with him and see if they can develop him. I'd 100% love to see that. So that's my fourth one. Shaka Heyward. If you haven't looked at him, just go type highlight videos of him, and you'll like seeing a little bit of tape on him. So let me know what you guys think. Jonathan Ford, Drake Nugent, Shaka Heyward, Frank Gore Jr., getting Karan Amagaji some more reps. I'd like to see all those things happen. The final part of this year, we've got four games left. And this is a time where the Bears need to develop these players and really see what they have, see what we have in these guys, and bring some of these guys over if they could potentially be roster spots for next year or guys that could break out. You have players all the time that make it from the practice squad and then become standouts. So I'm all in on it. We'll have more to come later. I've got my preview video for the Bears versus Vikings coming up. I will have another mock draft coming up. I know you guys like the mock draft, so I'll have that coming up. But this stuff to me is intriguing, how the Bears can shape the roster, players that they can develop, players that they can try to bring in and try to see what they have in them. So this is part 3 of that series. I did free agency. I did the salary cap and who we might be able to cut. Now I'm doing potential experimental players we could do through the end of the year. Getting Karan Amagaji some reps, getting maybe Noah Sewell some reps, Reddy Stewart some reps, but bringing some of these guys in from other teams' practice squads, committing to them for 3 weeks on the 53-man roster. There's worse things we could do, and then seeing what we could do with them. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you haven't hit the like button, please do so. If you haven't subscribed, do that as well. I do like to try to bring you guys the best content I can, and we'll keep moving forward with this channel. As always, the Bears, and bear down.